All right, welcome back to Super Bowl Radio Row from the Moscone Center in downtown San Francisco. My name is Chase Sr. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report and our coverage in the lead up to Super Bowl 60 at Levi's Stadium between the Patriots and the Seahawks rolls on. And, of course, I've continued to give you great coverage here on the Niners right here on the program. Another loaded show on the rundown tonight. NFL insider Jay Glazer reporting today from here, Radio Row in San Francisco, that Raiders pass rusher Maxx Crosby might get traded this offseason. Now, the Niners have shown interest in trading for Maxx Crosby before. Will they and should they again? Also, I caught up with Niners defensive tackle C.J. West earlier today. I asked him about his rookie campaign and how he'd scouted the Niners' hiring of Raheem Morris at defensive coordinator to replace Robert Saleh. So we'll play that interview as we touched on a bunch of topics with him. I do want to begin with today's poll question, though. Do you want the Niners to trade for Maxx Crosby? This is a player who's been the apple of John Lynch's eye in the past. Type T for trade or P for pass. I always want you to have a voice on this show, so share your thoughts with me down in the comment section right now. And as you can see behind me, it is a very lively atmosphere when you're at Radio Row. There are a bunch of people from all around the world, all types of media outlets, radio, digital, TV, online, print, who are covering the NFL, but also you see celebrities walking around, current and former players, current and former coaches. It is a mega NFL type of event here. And when a big story develops or a big story breaks, you can tell that everybody starts to turn their heads a little bit, everybody starts to converse, and the action gets ratcheted up a little bit. And so I saw Jay Glazer walking around a little bit earlier today. I meant to catch up with him, but he was doing a bunch of hits with a bunch of shows, and he goes on Yahoo, I believe, and I think they're doing a live stream, and he drops this huge blockbuster trade nugget that Maxx Crosby's time with the Raiders could come to an end this offseason, and he could get dealt. And that really sent a shockwave all across the National Football League, because you're talking about a premier player who has been dominant over the last few years. And since he's come into the league, he has been truly elite, and he's just so great at his craft. And if a player like that is available, I can guarantee you half of the league, 3/4 of the league, they're going to be calling the Las Vegas Raiders with this new regime. Clint Kubiak set to become head coach, and they're going to call the Raiders and gauge what it might cost to bring in a player like that. Will the San Francisco 49ers be one of those teams? Well, of course, when you're talking about trading for a star player of this ilk, you have to talk about the asking price. What would it take to trade for a player like Maxx Crosby, who is under contract, who's still in his prime, he's in his late 20s, and he's not really showing any signs of slowing down. And this is a player that can really move the needle for a ball club. And for a team like the Niners, which last year was hurt, but also not good along the defensive line and had arguably the worst pass-rushing defensive line in football, evidenced by the fact that they were dead last in sacks, Maxx Crosby becomes a player who can make this team so much better. And you think about the possibilities of Maxx Crosby being opposite of Nick Bosa and what it can do for all three levels of the defense. It becomes a very fascinating subject matter. But the asking price, I think, is going to be astronomical. Jay Glazer said that this trade for Maxx Crosby could be worth more than the Micah Parsons trade. Micah Parsons fetched 2 first-round picks. Now, he also, on top of getting those 2 first-round picks to the Dallas Cowboys from the Green Bay Packers, had a record-breaking contract that he signed with Green Bay. So if the Niners were to trade for Maxx Crosby, the asking price would be crazy. And the issue that the Niners run into, they have some cap space. They're going to be around $50 million with the NFL salary cap blossoming and going north of $300 million. But this is a Niners team that last year told us with their actions and with their words that they want to have this hybrid reset/rebuild. They want to build through the draft, and they want to develop some homegrown players who are very cost-controlled over the next few years. And they need to get younger as a football team. But they're also kind of slightly in this championship window, right? Christian McCaffrey's going to be 30 next year. Trent Williams is going to be 38 years old. Nick Bosa is going to come back. He's starting to get older. George Kittle coming off a torn Achilles. He's getting older. Fred Warner coming off that broken ankle. He's getting older. And if you make a move for Maxx Crosby, does that help the Niners close the gap on the Seattle Seahawks? Does it enhance their chances of winning a Super Bowl championship? We know for a fact it makes this defense better. But does it make the defense better to a point where it would be worth giving up 2 first-round picks and squandering an opportunity to help you build for the future with players who could be on that rookie contract for the next 4 or 5 years and come at a fraction of the cost of Maxx Crosby? And you also think about some of the other possibilities in free agency. What if the Niners were to go after a player like Trey Hendrickson, who might not be to the level of Maxx Crosby, but is very close? He's not as young as Maxx Crosby. He's older. But if you signed him, you don't have to give up anything in a trade. And if you signed him, I don't think it would cost as much as it would for you to trade for Maxx Crosby and to pay him under the current construct of his contract. So yeah, this is a fascinating possibility. I do expect the 49ers to check in on the services of Maxx Crosby to gauge what the asking price might be, but I would be kind of surprised if the Niners were to make a move like this. I actually think they're in a good spot on the defensive side of the ball. When you get back Nick Bosa, you get back Mykel Williams, and Fred Warner returns as well, and you're counting on continued contributions and growth from players like Alfred Collins, C.J. West, Mykel Williams, Upton Stout. I actually think the Niners are building something pretty solid here on the defensive side of the ball. Plus, I really like the hiring of Raheem Morris. I actually think if the Niners are to make aggressive moves this offseason, if they are to spend money, it has to come on the offensive side of the ball. You need to get better at center and left guard. You need to get faster, more explosive at wide receiver. You need to get younger on offense because this is the oldest offense in the National Football League. And if you don't address those things on offense, you are not going to close the gap on the Seattle Seahawks, who are one of the youngest teams in the NFL, who kicked the Niners' asses the final 2 games of the year, and I don't think they're going anywhere with John Schneider, one of the best general managers, building that roster, and with Mike McDonald, a fantastic coach. So the Niners have shown interest in Crosby before. Will they again? I do think they will, but will they pull the trigger? I'm not sure. Now, when you talk about Maxx Crosby, you're talking about a player who empties the tank, who plays with a great motor, he plays with a great hustle, and he's so fun to watch. 6'5", 255, he moves really well. He has a plethora of moves that he can use at his disposal in order to get after the quarterback. He cares deeply about his craft. He cares deeply about his team, and he cares so much about the game of football. You can tell that this is a guy who is so passionate about how he plays and what he puts on tape. And that's why, since coming into the league, he's been one of the finer players in the NFL. Year 1, 10 sacks. Year 2, 7. Year 3, 8. 12.5, 14.5 after that. 7.5 in 2024. And then 10 this past year. The concern that you have entering his age 29 season, and he has missed some time, and he's dealt with injuries over the last 2 years. So those are certainly valid concerns, especially for a Niners team that has suffered from so many injuries. And then you look at the contract as well. So he signed a 3-year, $106.5 million deal that averages out to be $35.5 million in average annual value. He got $62.5 million guaranteed at signing. That's billed to the Raiders, and he's going to get $91.5 million in total guaranteed money. He is under contract through 2030 because last offseason, the Raiders gave him a new deal because the market at pass rusher was changing with all the contracts that came in. Myles Garrett got paid. TJ Watt got a new contract. Micah Parsons got paid. Now, Maxx Crosby got paid before those guys, but my point is that the market at the pass rusher spot has been fluid, and it's been changing drastically over the last few years. Salary cap has gone up. What naturally happens? Player contracts go up as well. So his 2026 contract, the cap hit, is $35.8 million. You pair that with what Nick Bosa is making, another question here becomes, are the Niners willing to pay this much money for 2 pass rushers, because that can make you thin at other spots across your roster. 2027, the cap hit is $29.7 million. There's a potential out 2028, but then in 2028, $27.2 million is the cap hit, and in 2029, $28 million. If he's under contract actually for that price, and you can get past 2026 and swallow and deal with the $35.8 million cap hit, it's actually not a bad contract if he stays healthy and if he continues to produce, because the cap hit's under $30 million. If he's having double-digit sacks and he's impacting the game in a great way, you can actually manage that, and I think that contract situation is manageable. The Niners' pass rush possibilities with Maxx Crosby, Nick Bosa, really fun to think about. As for other suitors, Jay Glazer said there will be many suitors. Diana Rossini reported that Maxx Crosby wants to play for Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots. What's different between the Patriots and the Niners are sitting in a good spot with available cap room. But the New England Patriots, I believe, going into this upcoming offseason, are top 5 in cap space. So they can make a bolder move like this, and because they made it to the Super Bowl, depending on if they win or lose, they might feel some pressure to make a move that can enhance their chances of winning a Super Bowl, especially while Drake May is on that rookie contract. The Niners are in a different spot because they're not as close as New England. They don't have as much money, and they're paying big-time dollars to their quarterback in Brock Purdy because they gave him that contract extension. So to round this out, Maxx Crosby's time with the Raiders most likely done, according to Jay Glazer. He adds that it's ultimately Crosby's decision and that he doesn't want to go through another rebuild. And Glazer suggesting that his trade value would be higher than Micah Parsons, who got 2 first-round picks. I know that Maxx Crosby has the Raiders logo tatted on him, but the shelf life for an NFL player, it's short in the grand scheme of things and in the grand scheme of life. And Maxx Crosby has wasted away his prime years of his career playing for a bad organization where he's never had an opportunity to compete at a high level team-wise for even a playoff spot, let alone a Super Bowl. So that's the latest on Maxx Crosby from Super Bowl Radio Row in downtown San Francisco. If I hear anything on this front, I'll be sure to let you know. Now, let's throw it to my interview with the Niners defensive tackle C.J. West. Had a really good year 1 going into year 2. We talked about his rookie year. We talked about the hiring of Raheem Morris, what to expect from this Niners defense looking ahead to the 2026 season, and how were the Niners able to win 12 games and a playoff game with all these injuries while persevering and showing an unbelievable amount of toughness. Really speaks to the culture that the Niners have built, and C.J. West echoed that. Enjoy. Your rookie year in the books with the San Francisco 49ers, how would you kind of explain your rookie year and evaluate it for yourself?
Yeah, it was a huge learning experience. I got a ton of experience being on the field. It's a playoff experience, which is really special, coming in as a rookie, kind of getting that really intense feeling of football later on in the postseason. But that was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I got a ton of vets who take care of me, so it was really, really, really fun.
The Niners on Sunday hiring Raheem Morris as their new defensive coordinator. Yeah. It's the 4th time that him and Kyle are going to reunite on a coaching staff together. They're really tight going back to the early 2000s. I know you're going into year 2. Mm-hmm. You might not be all too familiar with Raheem Morris, but what are your thoughts on that hiring?
Yeah, I heard he's a great coach. I know it as Atlanta defense is pretty solid, so kind of seeing them, and we played against them early in the season, they had a pretty solid defense. I'm excited for it. It's an opportunity for me to learn a different scheme, just learn different things, be with a different coach, just kind of feel around the league, and I'm excited. I'm very excited. And when our team comes back healthy, we'll do really good, so I'm excited for that.
You mentioned getting healthier. What can we expect from this Niners team in 2026? I actually think this defense is in a really good spot.
Yeah.
You get the rookies having more experience going into year 2. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Mykel Williams going to be healthy. What can we expect from this defense next year?
Just more violence, more attacking on the field. You're going to see us flying around like usual. It's going to be a great time. You see us making a bunch of plays. Turnovers, that's a big emphasis coming into this new year. A bunch of turnovers. You're getting after the quarterback, really. That's our job up front. That's the goal that we want to do.
As far as the Niners' defensive style, can we expect more of that violence coming next year?
Of course, yeah. You're gonna see us playing really violent. People, helmets probably flying off and stuff like that. It's gonna be fun. You're gonna see us having fun out there, flying around and just really making an impact on the field and getting to the quarterback, making an impact, impacting the quarterback, making him uncomfortable more often. And yeah, a lot of people coming back, so that'll be good.
With how many injuries this team suffered, how were you guys able to go 12-5 and then win a playoff game? Was it the culture? Was it the message from Kyle? Was it just belief? What was it?
Yeah, it's the Niner culture, man. And the culture here is different, and it's very much a next man up mentality. No matter what's going on, the adversity that we face, we still got to go out there, perform, and do our jobs. And that's what we really stand on. And no matter what the thing is, we have a standard that we have to uphold, no matter who's in the game. With Eric coming in, with Gallo coming in, Tatum Batum, coming in. That's kind of what we did, and just kind of upholding that standard no matter what the situation is.